Oh, that was awful.
Hey Screen Mates, I'm Nick.
I'm Steph.
And this is Chris, the screenplay fish, aka today, 007.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, just revel in that one for a minute. That one comes in, thank you to Lachlan Darcy Nowak. 007, if you want to name that fish, use the comments below using the hashtag #NameThatFish. But we're not here, as usual, to talk about naming fish. We're here because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really sorry to say it. Oh, I don't know if I can. I think Trump has a point about video games and violence.
Okay, but hang on, because I feel like we need to clarify that is a view that we're going to be exploring in this video, but not necessarily the view that we both possess.
If I said Obama has a point about violence in video games, you'd all be like, yeah, Barack Obama! This is all coming about because obviously the school shooting in America that happened a few weeks ago, off the back of that, the whole violence, video games, gun debate raged again, as it always does, and people need to be seen to be doing something. So the Trump administration put together a sort of conference meeting.
Yeah, kind of a
chat.
meeting of people to discuss the state of video games and the violent content within.
The people that we got together, a few Republican senators, some concerned parties, which I think concerned parties are pretty much, I think of the Reverend...
People that stand to lose or gain from it.
Yeah, totally. It's Reverend Lovejoy's wife in The Simpsons.
Right.
That's concerned party. You know who wasn't there?
Who?
Anyone with any, like, degree or semblance of intelligence when it comes to, here's some research showing that video games don't link to violence and violent behavior.
Yeah.
Is like research that we've shown over the past sort of 20 years about the decline in the crime rate, but the exponential growth of the video games industry.
Look, I think if this was genuinely, if this was genuinely a study into the content of video games and the effect that they have on people, then I'd be all for it. I think it's definitely a discussion that we need to have and revisit regularly. But that's not what this was. I think everyone knows that this is a way to derail the conversation away from gun reform. And the main argument that everyone has been trying to put forward is that here in Australia, we play all the same video games and we're not shooting each other because we have gun reform.
In the States, the crime rate has dropped as well. That you go, the violent crime rate in America, 93, there were 747 violent crimes per 100,000 residents. In 2016, that went down to 386. So it's basically half the violent crime.
Right.
Way more violent video games. So why do you think that video games are something that you can point to and use as this sort of like smokescreen, as opposed to...
I think, when we look at media as a whole, violence has always been prevalent in media. I think we as a society, for whatever reason, are obsessed with the idea of murder and serial killers and detective mysteries, and it is so pervasive throughout all of our media. But video games put like the interactivity aspect of it and the onus on the person to physically shoot people. And I think that people find that interactiveness more of a solid argument for why someone would then go and do that in real life.
And that's so interesting to me because I think it's entirely because the people who say that, they don't play video games. So I get from their perspective that they, you walk past a television and you see a kid sitting down playing Call of Duty. First of all, that kid shouldn't be playing Call of Duty. You see an adult playing Call of Duty and you go, okay, that looks really, really violent. But when you play that game, at least for me, I'm not really seeing the violence. It's like a Matrix situation. I'm like, it's mechanically satisfying to do this thing. It's like kicking a soccer ball where you go like, oh, that was really satisfying that my foot hit the ball on exactly the right angle that caused it to arc up there and land where I wanted. In the same way, when you play a shooter, getting a headshot is not the satisfaction of like blood spray and someone collapsing. It's that you moved the reticle in the right position and got the right timing and everything to make that happen. In films, like you mentioned, with when it comes to the violence that we see in there, that's an entirely passive experience. So you're sitting there consuming that, and you're not doing anything other than letting that soak into your body. In video games, I think that the mechanical aspect is not teaching you to do this stuff, it's teaching you to do a skill that if you replaced with any other rapper would still be just as satisfying. It's that the murder rapper is the most popular rapper to rap all media.
It's so true, but it's similar to what we were talking about earlier with sexual content in games and stuff like that. Within the context of what you're doing, it doesn't feel out of place. But if someone walks into the room and you're playing a game that's excessively violent or has sexual content in it, you immediately feel awkward, don't you? Because you're like, oh, somebody is going to judge me because they don't understand the context of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And where it sits within the kind of framework of this whole game world and all that kind of thing. So
But then if my grandmother is watching Saving Private Ryan and someone from the 30s walked into the room, they'd be like, why are you watching this? This is horrific. This is happening in real life right now. Why are you watching this for entertainment? So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, like you said, not understanding that. But then there are people who do understand this and they still think this is a problem. So over the weekend, Warren Spector tweeted out. Warren Spector, like grandfather of video games.
I don't feel like his opinion is the one that anyone should be listening to on this subject. Because his background is Deus Ex, right?
Yeah.
And then he was like, I'm leaving these games behind. I don't feel good about making them, so I'm gonna make Epic Mickey. Which were by and large not great games.
Epic failure.
Epic failure. And I don't think he really has his finger on the pulse of what is happening in games and what games are and what they should be. And
We're getting a bit of like old man angry.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
So he came out and he said that he tweeted, I don't believe games cause violent behavior, not for 1 second. However, the video game reel shown at the White House on Thursday is simply disgusting. So this is a trailer that they cut that showed all the worst things in video games in about 90 seconds. Every shot is in colossally bad taste and everyone associated with those games should be ashamed of themselves. They hurt us.
But you could make the same supercut from film, and you would get the same reaction.
You can make the same supercut from this show.
I just
and
think
there would be-
I just think that, like, I mean, obviously the interactivity element does, is worth exploring, but I think if you're going to hold that standard to video games, you have to hold the same standard to film.
Yeah, and this is where I think that Trump does have a point, and I don't think he knows that he has a point. I think he backed ass backwards into this point, and he only pointed it at video games because he has an agenda. But you point it to all media, and I mean, admittedly, he did bring up some other films and that sort of thing. But you point it to all media. You point it to life. You point it to his own Twitter account. You point it to all the wars that everyone is starting. I can't get the pie chart any wider, but you understand what's going on. That the violence is an easy thing to jump to.
Yeah.
And I think that by making violence an easy thing to jump to put into your creative whatever, it feels like it's something that is easy to use to shock. The problem is that the more we see it, yeah, the desensitization is happening. I don't think it's desensitizing me to real world violence. I don't think that I'm less appalled that someone is shot in real life because I play shooters, but it's desensitizing me to video game violence, which means that your video game violence needs to become more violent for me to then be shocked by the thing that the video game is trying to do.
Yeah, there's definitely truth to that, I think. And I say this with an understanding that we fought pretty hard in this country in the video game industry to get the R18 rating passed and so that we have access as adults to adult content. But I think there are also games like, I guess when you think about Mortal Kombat and, games that have...
Any spine-ripping, whipping-like abilities?
Yeah, anything like that. Or, like Alien vs. Predator and, again, more...
Super gratuitous.
More spines.
More spines.
Super gratuitous violence. I don't necessarily think that there is, I guess, a need for that. I guess I'm not bothered by it personally enough to want a campaign to take it out of games so that other people can't have access to it, but I do kind of wonder why people crave it.
Why can't, instead of ripping the spines out of whipping each other, why can't the people in these games that are purely designed around fighting each other to the death just get along? So yeah, that's where we land on this one. I feel like Trump... I don't like admitting that the man sometimes has a point, and I have to clarify, I don't think he knows that he actually has a point.
No. I think, again, it's just drawing the attention to the fact that we need to have a broader conversation about violence in media as a whole and take the focus off video games specifically, because I think it's not just about games. If we're going to have this conversation about violence, we need to look at everything.
Absolutely.
And,
that's not happening.
And that's not happening.
And that's not happening. But what is happening is now your screenSAY. Our first screenSAY comes in from Defenstration, who says the vast majority of games aren't nearly as violent as non-gamers seem to think they are, so on average, no. Which is a very good point. That most games are probably not horrifically violent.
No, I think it's a select few.
They're just very popular.
And they make a big deal about the amount of violence that are in there.
Yeah.
I remember when Doom launched at E3, I was just like, I walked out of that press conference being like, what did I just see?
So good for a and then finally, the last answer comes in from Mitapotta who says, yeah, some games are a bit too violent for my taste. I'd love to see more games be more self-aware when it comes to murdering people and explore the consequences and impact of that. Killing demons or monsters, whatever, go nuts. Humans, though, I feel it's a bit different.
It's just hard because I feel like games, just like film, if there's certain games that feature content that I don't like, I just don't play them.
Yeah. If it's too confronting, it's like
Because then we had this whole conversation of like you're taking a whole genre away from people who do want to pursue that for whatever reason, and do I have the right to tell them that they can't?
And the difficulty there is the more that you explore the impacts of that, the less that character is going to wander around shooting people, which means the less that you get to use the mechanic in the video game that you're playing in the first place. So it's kind of like you're forcing story on something. But I would love to see more games just, again, like I sort of said before, have a look at the weight of violence and use it as a shocking tool as opposed to just like, you know, this is considered what we're supposed to do in these kinds of games. All right, let us know what you guys think about violence in games. Does Trump have a point? Is media in general too violent? Give us your answers in the comments below. And name that fish using the hashtag #NameThatFish. Yeah. 007.
007.
That one's taken. You can't use that.
If you liked this video, make sure you hit the like button and maybe subscribe to our channel as well so you can see more videos that you'll probably like as well.
And you can find out when those videos get posted by turning on notifications below. And there's videos here and here that you didn't get notified because you haven't turned it on yet. So you probably haven't seen them. So check it out. And if you have seen them,
watch them again.
Yeah.